Hello, everyone. My name is Patrick King, and you are here for another edition of Sustainable Nashville Live. This is the interview series that hopefully kind of bridges the gap between the public and professionals that are working in and around sustainability here in Nashville. And today I'm here with Meg Morgan of Root Nashville. Woo. A couple of reminders before we get started. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, you can go ahead and do that right now. Just go to YouTube and search Urban Green Lab and click the subscribe. Urban Green Lab also is a nonprofit. So if you feel so inclined to support the work that we do, feel free to make a donation at our website, urbangreenlab.org, or you can text 44324, text Team UGL to that number, and I'll get a link sent directly to your phone. With that, let's go ahead and get started. First things first, Meg, how are you doing today?
Doing well, working from home, as you can see, but glad that this kind of outdoor work can continue during this crazy year. So yeah, all things considered, doing pretty good. So excited to be here. So excited to talk to you, Patrick, and we love Urban Green Lab. So can't wait.
Excellent. Excellent. Love to hear all of that. I'm so happy to have you here. Really excited you're still able to kind of get through everything with all this year's thrown at us. And I don't want to give too much away, so let's just go ahead and get started with the whole interview. Could you start by telling us a little bit about Root Nashville and some of the work you all do?
Absolutely. So Root Nashville is a citywide tree planting campaign, and we have a really big goal of planting 500,000 trees in Davidson County by 2050. So we're led by Cumberland River Compact, which is a nonprofit, and Metro Nashville. And it is something that everybody can be a part of. So I like to joke that that's what helps me sleep at night with this really, really big goal, is that it's not just our efforts and our planting that are getting towards this big goal and working to be a part of it. It's something that everybody can join in and be a part of, whether that is somebody on their own public property or private property planting a tree, or our friends at organizations like the Tennessee Environmental Council or the Nashville Tree Foundation or the National Tree Conservation Corps. So in short, we're Nashville's tree planting campaign.
Excellent. Sold. That's the end of the interview. No, I'm just kidding. So you mentioned it a little bit early on, just when I asked how you were doing, but how has COVID impacted the work that you all do, if at all?
Mm-hmm. So in some kind of odd ways, we've seen some positive impacts come out of this for us ourselves. And I in no way mean to, minimize the tragedy that has impacted many people and the hardships that COVID has caused. But with people being home more often and in their neighborhoods more, we've seen a huge uptick in this year of people who are interested in trees and people who are wanting to plant trees on their own property. So that's kind of been an interesting takeaway from this. And now that tree planting season is underway, we're also fortunate that this work can continue because it's outdoors and because you only need small groups of people to get the work done. So yeah, all things considered, we're able to chug along while we work from home. But we can continue doing these things, number one, because there's interest in it, which is really awesome and cool to see. But it's also nice that this is outside and you can be masked up and in small groups to get it done.
Absolutely amazing. That's really great to hear. And in last week's interview with Melody Gibson of the Civic Design Center, we were discussing just kind of that renewed public interest in green spaces and in public spaces, and how that was kind of a unintended positive outcome of everything that has happened this year. So it's really great to hear that, as an organization kind of works in public spaces and green spaces, that that's your experience as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, we've seen the same thing, and just not expected necessarily, but it's been kind of an interesting positive side effect of people being home more often. Yeah.
Yeah, it really makes you appreciate those things that are tangible and also close by and accessible.
Yes,
all of the things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Could you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got interested in this sort of work?
Yeah, sure. So I'm actually pretty new to the world of environmental and conservation work. Most of my background's in communications and in nonprofit management. So yeah, it's been, I guess about a year and a half with the Root Nashville campaign at the Cumberland River Compact. and before then have really most of my career been involved with kind of collaborative nonprofit type work. And it's always where I've been drawn, because I really feel like we can get more done together when we're working towards one big issue and kind of all, putting all in towards one thing together. So kind of in that background, had always wanted to, gosh, like someday, I really hope to be doing this kind of work with an environmental issue and with, something to do with the outside and with nature. It's always what I wanted, especially because, it's like the systems change work and this big level, big broad level work in environmental work, like it's literally a system, right? Like I'm always saying, like it's an ecosystem, like it's so many players that are a part of this. And so I really feel like this kind of partnership driven collaborative work is really suited for that. So yeah, I'm with Root Nashville and with the compact, like exactly where I wanted to be someday. So that's pretty cool that I can say that.
Oh, that's really, really cool. And it's also, I don't know, it kind of just speaks volumes into kind of how any job or any career can be one that's sustainable, to where, you don't necessarily have a degree in environmental science, but you are also now doing environmentalist work.
Right.
And everything in your career path has kind of like led to that. And like all those skills you've garnered have just manifested itself in that you finally kind of getting to do what you're passionate about and what you've always wanted to do.
Exactly. And sometimes I get to be outside and I get to actually get dirty for my job and be in the dirt and the ground, actually planting trees. So that's a nice perk as well.
Yeah. Nothing beats just being, that connected to nature. Like you are a contributing member of that system when you're out there getting dirty and planting trees.
Absolutely. And it's so tangible, which is really nice too. At the end of a planting or at the end of an event, you can kind of look around and be like, all those trees weren't there before this, and they will be there after me, if all goes well. So
yeah. I don't have an initiative to plant 500,000 trees, but last year I planted one just right outside my front door, and it's always nice to just walk outside and be like, wow, it's gotten taller. It's taller than me now. And just imagining that like multiplied by tens of thousands must be a really very rewarding feeling.
It's pretty satisfying. Yeah. And we hope that it, for people like you who planted in their own yard and can kind of watch that, it kind of gives people a way to stay connected to this work too, and a way to see like, oh, this is happening like in my own yard, and like I can make a difference on these really big issues like climate change in my own yard. And also, by the way, it like happens to be beautiful and it like makes me feel good,
Yeah, all of the things. And it's, like you just said, fighting climate change, providing shade. That actually is going to lead into one of my next questions. So again, getting a little ahead of myself. But next up, so Root Nashville is working with Metro government to plant 500,000 trees by 2050. So we still have about 30 years left. Could you tell us a bit more about this campaign, how it got started, and maybe where you all are now?
Yeah, absolutely. So as kind of an official citywide campaign, it started in October 2018. So we're headed into our third planting season as a city right now. And we're at, last time I checked, as a city, a little under 11,000 trees that have been planted so far. So we're getting there. We're getting there. Still got a long way to go, but we're getting there. But within this planting season that just started, mid-October. So we plant generally mid-October through March, kind of when the trees are dormant, when it's not great weather is actually when you do want to plant trees. Within this upcoming planting season, we're estimating that we're going to maybe almost double that goal as a city. And again, with like all of these tree planting partners planting. So yeah, you can expect to see those numbers increase in a big way, hopefully pretty soon. But in terms of, how the campaign got started, where it came from, it actually in a big way came from the community and Nashville residents saying that they wanted this. So there was something, I think it was in about 2016, called the Livable Nashville Committee that was convened. I'm sure Urban Green Lab was a big part of it as well. Convened all these leaders to, take a look at environmental quality in Nashville and what changes they wanted to make or recommendations. And through that committee, realized that we're losing, thousands and thousands of trees as a city, and this was even several years ago. And in addition to that, okay, on one hand, we're losing tons of trees, and also the community members who were a part of that committee really got excited about the idea about a tree planting campaign for Nashville. So there was a lot of momentum and interest in that. So that's kind of where the seeds, so to speak, of the campaign were planted. Yeah, exactly. And it's only grown from there.
Oh, wow.
I'll stop. I know you can get pretty far with these puns in this world.
Wow, you really came prepared with those puns. It was like 4 in a row. Okay. Whew. I guess it comes with the territory.
It does.
This is me racking my head to try and find the tree related pun, but I cannot do that at the moment.
Just leave it alone.
Oh, we're gonna have to cut that.
You can cut that. It might be one too many.
So that's really awesome. And I guess one follow-up question to that would be, where are these trees coming from? Is there a field somewhere in Davidson County, like away from closed eyes, where it's just, hundreds of saplings?
That's a really good question. So we source almost all of our trees from McMinnville, Tennessee,
Okay.
which is about 2 hours away. And it's actually known as the tree nursery capital of the entire United States because they supply so much of the country with trees. The whole really like eastern seaboard is, those trees come from McMinnville. So we're really lucky that McMinnville is so nearby, and that we can get those trees from those nurseries pretty easily. So yeah, we work with a tree broker who helps us get deals from nurseries. This is all real. And because we get them in such high quantities, we can either, in many cases, get donations or get really good deals on the trees that we're sourcing.
Okay. So shout out to McMinnville, tree nursery capital of America.
Who knew, right?
Gotta be something. Excellent. So could you tell us exactly what an urban tree canopy is and why it matters?
Yeah, great question. So urban tree canopy, it's kind of when you're maybe looking down at a city from above, like from a bird's eye view, how much of that land is covered by the tree canopy. So it's looking at the kind of total area that is covered by trees, not kind of individual trees. So the size of the tree plays a lot into this because you're looking at how much of the land is covered by tree, right? And covered by the branches extending. And it's important for so many ways. There's a ton of different benefits of trees, but the one that I like to remind people of or bring up often is that we need trees in order to be healthy, like very literally. So an urban tree canopy matters because our own health, like as humans, depends on having a healthy urban tree canopy as well.
Yeah, for sure. I know there's a lot of benefits outside of, providing shade and just looking good. People feel good when they're around nature, but even more than that, just the health benefits that come along to having trees is something that shouldn't be taken for granted.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that, so this next question is, could you tell us what the urban heat island effect is? And that's just going to kind of lead into the next following question.
Yeah, and it's related to, our urban tree canopy as well, right? So in areas where you don't have as high percentage of tree canopy cover is especially where you're going to see the urban heat island effect, which is what you're mentioning. So in a nutshell, this is an effect that shows that cities especially are hotter than areas that are more wooded, right? And that have more tree cover. So it's tied to whether you have a lot of hardscape in your landscape. So this is in the biz, either known as pervious or impervious surfaces. So where there's more impervious surfaces are, more concrete, more asphalt, places that rainwater can't soak in, right, or reflect back into the atmosphere. Areas that have more impervious surfaces, you're going to see higher temperatures. And one thing trees can do is help cool that back down in that green space.
Yeah. And so on a recent episode of Cumberland River Compact's podcast, River Talks, you spoke with Dr. Jeremy Hoffman on the relationship between tree equity and redlining. Could you tell us a little bit about this conversation?
Sure. Yeah, it was a fascinating conversation and some really incredible studies that are coming out with Dr. Hoffman and his team. So it's really recent work as well. So it's been interesting to see the continued articles that have come out about it. But what his team has found is that areas of cities, and this is a pattern that is unfortunately true all over the United States, but cities where redlining took place, which is again almost everywhere, those areas that were redlined, so those are areas that were marked as risky investments or places that loans were not to be given out as easily, and those were Black neighborhoods, right? Those areas are actually now hotter. So even though this is a practice that took place in, starting in the 30s and 40s, you can still see the implications of it today because it's connected to urban heat and it's connected to the tree cover in these areas.
Mm-hmm.
So, redlining, initially it was about, bank loans and housing practices, but it's tied to tree canopy as well. And those were the areas where trees were more likely to just be, taken down or not replanted. So yeah, and you can absolutely see that in Nashville as well, especially in North Nashville, just north of downtown, and South Nashville, just south of downtown. Those were areas that were historically redlined, that are now hotter, that now have less canopy distribution than other areas that were, and maybe continue to be where more white people live and where there is, wealthier areas as well. So yeah, it's kind of scary to think that these practices still have so many implications today, but that is part of the reason that in the Root Nashville campaign, we have areas where we are looking to focus our planting efforts. And the number one data piece that's guiding that is creating an equitable canopy distribution. And so because of that, it just so happens that our impact areas, two of the three align with areas that were formerly redlined as well. So yeah, we're looking to intensely plant in Madison and North Nashville and South Nashville through the Root Nashville campaign.
Yeah, that's absolutely amazing. I'm so happy that a good portion of the work that you all do kind of tries to right that systemic wrongs. Since we're talking about systems and things like that, but that you all are just at the outset valuing tree equity and just able to see that these are the areas where there's the greatest need, and also these are the areas that were historically marginalized through the practice of redlining. And for the viewers who might not be familiar with what we're talking about, I'll provide a link to Dr. Hoffman's research. And Meg, correct me if I'm wrong, originally his research was on Richmond, Virginia, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I'll provide that article. And also I'll provide a link to the River Talks. Again, following the puns, the name of the episode is Throwing Shade. A really good episode. So if you are interested in anything that we just discussed there, I highly encourage you all to listen to it.
Awesome. Thanks, Patrick.
Yeah, for sure. I'm always down for plugging my pluggables. So
love it. We appreciate it.
Yeah. So you mentioned earlier it is planting season. Do you have any tips for first timers out there? And maybe you can just break it down. What's the best way to plant a sapling in this period to ensure it survives the winter? And 20 years down the line, you have a huge tree that takes in carbon, captures it, and does all these beautiful things. Maybe it even has a swing in or a tree house. You tell us.
Absolutely, yes. So it is very much planting season. So thank you for bringing that up. And another thing I should mention about the Root Nashville campaign too is that we're planting 1-inch caliper trees. Okay. So that means trees that are about 1 inch in diameter at about shoulder height. So these are big trees. We do count saplings towards the goal if they have survived their first year after planting. But for the most part on the plantings that we're organizing, we're planting trees that are already okay, at least 8 feet tall in most instances. So for that kind of tree, it does bring the benefits, and it brings this tangible, oh, look at this big thing that wasn't there before, kind of wow factor. But it also is we've found the best for survivability of the trees. The smaller trees are so much easier to plant and, easier to get around and to transport, but they're also maybe more likely to be eaten by deer or by some of our other friends who live in our yards. So all that to say, those smaller trees can absolutely count towards the Root Nashville goal after they've survived their first year, just to make sure that they've made it. And most of the plantings we're doing are with these 1-inch caliper trees. So with those big trees, what you're going to want to do is really, in a nutshell, really the most important part is the depth of the hole and the quality of the hole that you are preparing for the tree. So you don't want to plant it too deep. That's probably the number one mistake in tree planting. You want that root flare. So right when the tree kind of becomes the roots, you want that to be right at ground level or even an inch or two above ground. And that's because almost all of the roots for a tree, it's not like people think, it's not like a mirror image of the tree. It's actually more this way. So almost all of the roots of a tree are in the top 1.5 feet or so of soil. I've heard it described as, you can kind of picture the root system as a wine glass sitting on top of a pancake, and the pancake is actually where the roots are. So not to make anybody like thirsty or hungry as we talk about this, but I think maybe we all know what we're going to get after this conversation. But because exactly, it sounds great. Because that's where the roots are, close to the surface. That's why you don't want to plant it too deep. So in a nutshell, preparing the hole for your tree is probably the most important part, and you don't want to plant it too deep because the roots need oxygen and they're close to the surface.
And then so you have your 1-inch caliber tree, you have a perfectly filled hole or perfectly dug hole. You plop your tree in there, you water it, you pray to the tree gods, and then wham bam, thank you ma'am, beautiful blooming tree.
Pretty much, yeah. So trees are pretty resilient. So as long as you water it once a week, especially through the months of May through September, you are good to go. You do want to water it right after planting as much as possible. But during this time of year, the trees are dormant. So you can kind of, it should probably rain, at least once a week from now through May anyway. So you don't really have to worry about as much at this time of year. And that's kind of why you do want to plant it this time of year. It gives the tree a second to just kind of, like, okay, here I am. This is my new home. And then in the growing season, which would start, when the leaves come out, when the buds come out, is really when it starts to expand its root system and really get out there. So at this time of year, the best thing you can do is making sure that it's planted at the right depth and planted correctly. And then what you're really going to want to start doing in May through September is just making sure it gets watered at least once a week if it doesn't rain.
Seems easy enough. It sounds like trees kind of just take care of themselves after you just give them a little bit of help.
They kind of do. And don't, tell anyone, but I don't really have a green thumb. Most of my houseplants don't do great. I kind of have a couple that are doing okay. But even with that, I feel comfortable and like very confident planting trees because they're a lot tougher than most of the plants that you might have inside. And as long as you've thought really carefully about getting the right tree in the right place, water it over the summer, should be good to go.
Excellent. Sounds easy enough. And the green thumb thing will be kept between us. So you're good.
Thank you.
Yeah. So how can members of the public get involved and kind of contribute to this work?
Yeah, so one way is exactly what you've already done, Patrick. So you're a part of the campaign, whether you realize it or not, but no, you can plant a tree on your own property and you can count that towards the goal. So, wherever you source your trees, whether that's your local Lowe's even, or if you want to go to a local nursery, if you were to get one on your own and plant it on your own property, you can count that towards the goal. There's a mapping software through the Root Nashville website called Tree Plotter, and you can create a login and you can go ahead and add your tree right then and there. It's also really fun because you can see where all the other newly planted trees of the campaign are located, and you can see what types they are. You can sort it by land use. You can get all this like kind of cool different data points from it. So that's absolutely one way you can join, is just by planting a tree on your own property. But if you want to help other people get trees planted, one of the things that actually worked out really weirdly well for us with the pandemic is our planting season this year. So we are doing much more in quantity planting events that are smaller in size. So we're doing planting events through a new program that we launched this year called the Neighborhood Planting Captain Program.
Mhm.
And in that program, neighborhood leaders and individuals have applied to become a captain in their neighborhood. And then if they are kind of granted captain status and awarded through that program, if they become a captain, then they get free trees to then distribute to their neighbors. So this was a way for us to get more people involved in a more grassroots kind of
Mhm.
way and get people involved talking neighbor to neighbor and peer to peer instead of
Mhm.
us kind of coming in and saying like trees are so important, like you gotta plant trees here. We're trying to outsource some of that and
Yeah.
also get more people involved on a community level. So all of that to say our planting events are happening now because it is planting season,
Mhm.
and they are these neighborhood style organizations that have happened through these captains. So we are having very small kickoff events. Everyone is masked up. No more than 25 people, and we do a little kickoff and a planting demonstration, and then from there split off into even smaller crews of about 4 to 5 people,
Mhm.
and we have a certain number of trees within each crew that need to be planted within
Mhm.
that neighborhood. So it's like
Gotcha.
a really fun way so far to actually get out and do something, to be in a small group with people, to be outside, and to help people who selected trees actually get the tree planted in their yard. So very long explanation of
Mhm.
saying, how can you get involved? You can sign up to come to a tree planting, and you can join a planting crew. You'll be with a staff member to supervise along the way to make sure that these trees are getting planted correctly. And we would definitely encourage people to join us. We're planting pretty much every weekend, some Friday afternoons as well from now through March. So
Okay.
plenty of different ways to get involved with there if you want to join us and getting your hands dirty and getting outside.
Yeah, that's awesome. So a lot of opportunities coming up between now and March. And I wasn't aware about the tree captains thing. It's kind of like you all, not only you're outsourcing that, but you're also outsourcing that and with community organizing and like building community relationships, which is just the most beautiful thing ever. That's really great. And I will be providing that link for folks who are interested in signing up for a volunteer opportunity. And again, that's from now until March every weekend. So go out there and plant some trees, y'all.
Absolutely. Come join us. And it's a lot of fun. We bring music, you get a t-shirt. So yeah, we'll bring all the tools. If you bring gloves, if you have them, just keep everything as clean and tidy as we can. But yeah, we'd love to see more people come out.
Love it. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. And I have one more question for you. And this is my favorite question to ask, but also it's like the most broad. So first things first, you're going to imagine you have a magic wand in your hand. And then secondly is what is your sustainable vision for the city of Nashville?
Mm. With the magic wand, yes. Okay. I've got it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking. Um, so I think my sustainability vision for Nashville would be waving the wand that Nashvillians both know and understand, but also take action on the fact that our own health as people is tied to the health and quality of our environment and of the land and how we treat it.
Mm-hmm.
And knowing that trees are a big part of that picture. So yeah, just I think a vision of Nashville as a beautiful, green, shaded, healthy community, both for the environment and for the citizens who live here.
Love it.
Does this work? Yeah, can
Yes.
it? Okay.
Well, just I guess whatever feels natural for you to just wave.
Somehow this does. I don't know.
Perfect. This is your wand. You tell us.
Thank you. Thanks for the
Yeah,
power.
yeah. I mean, it's your power. I'm just here existing in it. Yeah. Well, Meg, thank you so much for talking with us today. And I really think your sustainable vision for Nashville is one that's beautiful. And it's also really great to know that you and volunteers are actively working towards that goal right now. If viewers have any additional questions or just want to get in touch, what's the best way to to reach you?
Oh yeah, great question. Thanks for asking that. So probably the best way to get in touch with us is through our just general email that the whole team is kind of responsible for, and that's hello@rootnashville.org. And I'm happy to share my email address as well, which is just meg.morgan@cumberlandrivercompact.org. There's a contact us on our website as well, and you can follow us on myriad social media channels as well to keep in touch with what we're up to.
Excellent. And I will be providing a myriad of links so viewers can just click and go ahead and subscribe. Highly encourage that you subscribe. So you mentioned those upcoming volunteer opportunities, but are there any other events that you'd like to plug before we wrap up here?
Big one's going to be planting, and we will that's going to be the one for a while, but we will have another round of neighborhood planting captain applications, most likely within this planting season, coming up pretty soon, probably opening up November, December for plantings that will take place in February and March. So you can keep an eye on the myriad of channels for that link as well once that's available.
Yeah, and that will only happen if you subscribe. So subscribe. Well, once again, Meg, thank you so much for being with me here today. Next week, we'll be interviewing Caroline Coster. She's the energy manager with Metro Nashville Public Schools. If you have any questions for Caroline or want to get in touch with me about an organization you would like to learn more about, my email address is patrick@urbangreenlab.org. You can reach me there. Aside from that, that's all I have for you. If you are not signed up for Urban Green Lab's newsletter, go ahead and do it now. It's just under our Facebook profile picture. That's all I got for y'all this week. Until the next time, remember to live sustainably.
Thanks, Patrick. Thanks, Urban Green Lab.
Thank you, Meg.